Today, a daily look at key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your family, your income, and your community.
Welcome back to RFD Today. On a Tuesday, it's time to talk with a Pioneer Field agronomist. Brad Mason joins us today for this week's report. And Brad, remind us of your territory and how things are looking today.
Yep, so I cover a territory from roughly 136 up to Interstate 80. Between the Illinois and Mississippi River kind of gives you a good idea of where I would cover. Overall, the area feels very behind because we are behind, but we did have a nice break in the weather here over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday, where more of the crop has been able to be planted than expected. Ground conditions were questionable, but overall favorable for at least being able to get across the field throughout my area.
So really encouraging, and I guess, what kind of conversations then are you having, Brad, with your customers?
A lot of the conversations have been around whether or not to plant a fuller season hybrid for corn. That has been the greatest discussion because there is that looming frost out there when we get to the fall with a late planting season. So the biggest question is what products to plant, and we start to discuss, how can corn adapt to this later planting season. Corn can adapt and can actually shave roughly 200 to 300 GDUs off needed to get to black layers. So that is encouraging to think that we can stick to a little bit fuller season hybrids, but it's still encouraged to talk to your local agronomist or your local seed provider to have those discussions on a need-to-know basis.
Now that you have come a little further down the road, do you take a big breath and then dive into weed management?
Yeah, weed management has probably been lacking just because it hasn't been fit to get across the field. Tillage passes have been next to nothing. A lot of people are moving to no-till just to get across the field. So weed management is something that's going to become critical because we're going to have a lot of weeds that may be larger than the crop we're putting in the ground. So making sure we can snuff out those weeds to give this crop the best opportunity we have, seeing how we're already behind schedule, we're already late in the year, we need to give this crop the best advantage it can.
Brad Mason, Pioneer Field agronomist, will be back with more RFD Today.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with a sun protection factor, or SPF, of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. UVA rays age the skin, UVB rays burn, and both cause cancer. But the perfect sunscreen doesn't count if you use it wrong. Don't need sunscreen on a cloudy day? Wrong. 80% of UV rays still get through the haze. Only use sunscreen at the beach? Nope. Anytime you're outside, UV rays attack the skin, so you need protection. And you have to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
RFD Radio Network's Rita Frazier connects rural routes for you. Rita delivers passion and reliable information to listeners on the RFD Radio Network. Her radio career spans close to 3 decades. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up on a small farm. My job today allows me to connect with people from all walks of life and experience opportunity every day. I get to talk about what I love, farming.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local county farm bureau for your discount code number.
We're back here on RFD Today, visiting On a Tuesday, from Congressional Quarterly, Ellen Ferguson joins us for a monthly visit. And I know, Ellen, this has been a very, very busy couple of days. We did get news, though, right, off the top, that disaster aid passed.
Yes, it did. Now the president has to sign it.
What are the chances, and maybe just talk us through that, how things have gone with that particular bill recently?
Well, it was a kind of drawn-out back and forth. The president had requested money for border enforcement, and the Democrats had disagreed. And just shortly, I guess about 2 weeks ago, the Democrats and Republicans were able to work out a compromise on the disaster funding that does not include the additional funding that the president sought, but addresses all the other needs that people had and disasters over the past 3 years. So the Senate passed it just before both chambers went out for Memorial Day recess, which was a week. And House Democrats did set it up so that there would have pro forma sessions, essentially short sessions where no one is really around other than a handful of people, and for the disaster bill to be approved by unanimous consent. As it turns out, 3 Republicans, one on each day of the pro forma sessions, got up and objected to passage. And so all it took was one person to object to what had been set up as unanimous consent. So this is the first week that both chambers are back after Memorial Day recess. And so the Democrats voted on it yesterday. As I said, the Senate had already approved it. So now it will go to the president.
From what we've seen from President Trump, and because of the content of this disaster aid package, do you anticipate the signature will come rapidly?
Well, right now he's in London. He could sign it there, or he could wait until he gets back, and I think that's within the next day or so. So I expect him to sign it as quickly as he can. He has voiced support for it, and I think it addresses some core constituents of his, including farmers. So I don't anticipate any problems there, and so I would expect it to be signed this week. I can't tell you which day, but I would expect it to be signed this week. And Senator Grassley, I was on a call with him just a little while ago, is very happy to see it pass. It includes provisions to cover stored grain that was, affected by flooding. Also, dairy that was stored that was affected by flooding. And so it is pretty, I don't want to say comprehensive, but it tries to address some of the real day challenges that farmers who were caught in flooding or in some natural disaster face. So he's pleased with it.
Very encouraging for sure. On kind of the other side of things, while the president is in London, Mexican officials are in the nation's capital. There certainly a lot of focus on the threat for a 5% tariff on Mexican imports. Where are we on that issue, and how will that affect the USMCA negotiations?
Well, right now there's a delegation of Mexican officials in town. They are citing the Wednesday meeting with Secretary of State Pompeo as a big meeting, and that they will have a better sense after that meeting of whether they've been able to reach an agreement with the United States or not. What Mexico is saying is that starting in December, it ramped up its enforcement and interception of Central American migrants crossing Mexico's southern border to enter Mexico and then head to the border with the United States, and that they have processed a number of migrants, sent them home, or have a number of them waiting in Mexico that are going through the asylum process. So Mexico is saying essentially that it has done quite a bit, and it's also arguing that stepping up enforcement is really not going to slow the flow down significantly if some of the issues in the home countries of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are not addressed. So they're arguing for a more comprehensive approach, something that involves maybe economic development or projects or something to give people a reason to stay home.
Where do we go? I mean, obviously our commodity markets are closely watching these negotiations. What are your thoughts on this long term?
I don't really know where things go. This was unexpected to some degree. I think however it's resolved, if it's resolved without the tariffs being imposed, it still throws an element of uncertainty into the whole process going forward. One of the things that Senator Grassley, who is chairman of the Finance Committee, which is one of two committees in Congress with primary jurisdiction over trade, is concerned about is that the tariffs create bad blood. That the tariffs worry stakeholders in the USMCA, primarily the business community, because once you get past this, you ask yourself, well, is there going to be something else that's going to trigger another tariff threat? Is there some other law that where Congress has delegated a lot of its authority to the president that he can use as a leverage? He believes he can use as leverage in some point that he wants to get some concessions from. So,
hi, this is Sabrina Hardy, RFD Business Manager. I want to thank you for listening to the RFD Radio Network, the #1 ag radio network in Illinois. Did you know RFD Radio Network's programming is being broadcast by Rita Frazier and Delosh Yankee with a combined 50 years of broadcasting experience? Join us daily. If you have any questions, email me at chardy@ilfb.org.
Farm, family, food. Those three words best describe Illinois Farm Bureau. Farm. For 100 years, Farm Bureau in Illinois has represented and served the men and women who make Illinois one of the top food-producing states. Family. At the heart of rural Illinois are traditional farm families who work together through Illinois Farm Bureau. And food. Farm Bureau families are proud to grow the healthy food they provide their families and yours. Farm, family, food. The heart of Farm Bureau in Illinois.
Thanks for shopping. Please come again.
Wow, you're really getting some bargains today. Think of all the money you've saved.
I know. And even better, my purchases are helping teach kids about agriculture.
Whoa, back up. I know you got some deals today, but I don't remember that purchase.
I use my Illinois Farm Bureau Visa card. Each time it's swiped, the IAA Credit Union makes a contribution to the Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom program.
Now that's a great deal. What else does your card do?
It's what it doesn't do. Charge me extra fees, have surprise rate jumps. Not with this card. I use it for all of my purchases.
I like the sound of that. Tell me, exactly what does Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom do?
They teach kids where their food really comes from. Just by using my card, I help provide teachers and volunteers with free materials so they can spread the message of the importance of agriculture in their classrooms.
You know, the IFB Visa card may be the best bargain yet. I'm going to get one of those for myself.
Get a great card, help a great cause. Go to IAAfoundation.org and click on the IFB Visa card to get one of your own.
Look up, look down, look around, look up, look down, look around, in the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
If you're hearing this, you should be concerned about the Asian longhorn beetle, an invasive species that's destroying our trees. But you can help. Look for the signs and help stop the beetle.
Look up, look down, look around, look up, look down, look around, in the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
Some signs of the ALB are dime-sized holes on tree trunks, a sawdust-like material called frass, and the beetle itself, with a long black body and white spots.
Look up, look down, look around, look up, look down, look around, in the trees and on the ground, 'cause the ALB must be found.
Learn all the signs and how to report them at AsianLonghornedBeetle.com. That's AsianLonghornedBeetle.com.
On RFD today, we're talking with Ellen Ferguson, Congressional Quarterly. We talked about the threat of the 5% tariff with Mexico, USMCA, huge for ag country. And the other thing, digesting really, because of the continued trade war with China, the market facilitation payments. And those details, although we need more, were announced out from USDA officials last week. What's the talk in D.C. About the market facilitation payments and where that leaves ag?
Well, I think since there aren't a lot of details beyond the fact that this will be paid out at rates determined by county, I think people are waiting for a few more details. I think the Secretary was trying to walk a fine line in assuring the agriculture community that the administration was indeed going to be making these payments and was going to try to address some of the criticisms that were made of the first round of payments. As you know, there were complaints by corn and wheat and some other areas that there was a great discrepancy in the way the per bushel or general payments were calculated. So I think the Secretary wanted to try and get ahead of that and try to say that, yes, we heard you and we're making changes. I think people are still waiting for more details and to see exactly how these rates play out and to see how each of the commodities and the segments of agriculture are treated. So it's a little bit of relief, but still, I think more questions are still out there. There was some concern, I know, by some lawmakers about farmers looking at the way things might be structured and trying to guess and maybe planting for what would get the biggest payment rather than, what the market demands. I don't know that those concerns have been entirely put to rest, but I think they also acknowledge that there was a need to try and assure people that something is coming. So that's where we are, waiting for more details and therefore then maybe more questions.
What about with Japan? Trade so important, it seems, to the USDA staff. McKinney Dowd doing a lot of work there, Purdue just returning and getting at least something to make progress with our relationship with Japan. What do you see?
I don't really know because those talks are really sort of opaque. As compared to the renegotiation of NAFTA, where not everything was out in public, but there were more opportunities maybe to get a few more details, to talk to stakeholders and get a better feel for what was going on. The talks with Japan are, as I said, a little more opaque. I know that particularly some of the beef people, are pushing to get in agriculture terms that are equivalent to or better than what existed in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which the president withdrew from in 2017. But I really don't see how that's doable unless the United States made some sort of concession that's equally attractive to Japan. So, both sides are talking very positively, but I have not heard a lot or seen a lot of actual detail. And then there's some question of whether maybe they might do agriculture as a separate piece, not part of a comprehensive trade agreement, but something that they might be able to do a little more quickly, that might even possibly not even require congressional approval. I don't quite see how that plays out, but it's something that the administration might pursue. So again, it's something that seems to be moving. Definitely more movement in it than the proposed U.S.-UK trade talks, which are on hold essentially for all intents and purposes until there's some idea of what exactly the United Kingdom will be able to actually control once it leaves the European Union. They are in a bit of turmoil over that, and so they're still trying to straighten that out. So that's something I know that the president talked about that a bit today in his joint appearance with Prime Minister May. But I don't really know how much they can get accomplished while there's a question mark about just exactly what the United Kingdom's relationship is going to be with the European Union and what exactly it's going to be able to control.
What's our takeaway? What will you be working on this week?
Well, I'm going to be looking at, whatever kind of resolution there might be out of this immigration tariff issue. I am also doing appropriations. The House Appropriations Committee is going to be marking up or reviewing the fiscal 2020 agricultural spending bill, which contains funding for the Ag Department, the Food and Drug Administration, and in the House, it's the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. In the Senate, another committee is responsible for funding the commission. So there are sort of the routine things that need to be, that I'll be keeping an eye on. Also looking at what happens on the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement, whether there's any kind of movement on that or not. Reportedly, Trade Representative Bob Lighthizer is supposed to be on the Hill this week talking to Democrats, and it would be interesting to see if this whole thing about the immigration tariffs, if that wound up maybe affecting his credibility, or the fact that the administration last week also sent sort of like a draft notice to Congress that it would be implementing legislation on the proposed agreement at a time when the Democrats are saying, wait a minute, we just started trying to negotiate with you about some of the things that bother us about the agreement, or some of the things that we feel are kind of incomplete. And now you're telling us, 30 days and that's it. So there are a number of things to keep an eye on. And, the president is always a wild card in this, too.
Ellen, thank you so much. Ellen Ferguson, Congressional Quarterly. We'll be back with more RFD today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Farm Week and Partners Magazine editor Chris Anderson connects rural routes for you. Chris shares her 4 decades of writing expertise by making sure each edition delivers the best information. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I was raised on a farm in Champaign County growing corn, soybeans, popcorn, pumpkins, and poultry. My top priority is to inform, educate, and even entertain Farm Bureau members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
The Illinois economy runs on our homegrown agricultural products. Our dairy, beef, pork, corn, and soybeans grow the agricultural industry by nearly $20 billion each year. But we don't just grow Illinois, we grow North America. Canada and Mexico account for over $45 billion in U.S. agricultural exports, and they support more than 1 million American jobs. Exports to Canada and Mexico matter to everyone in the agriculture and food industries.
A message from Illinois farmers and their checkoff programs.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture. We grow best together.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county farm bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. Or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
All Ag.
All Illinois.
All Now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All Ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program, with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/farmbureau.
Hey, we're back on RFD today. On a Tuesday, June 4th, we're going to head to Pike County, catch up with Kirby Wagner, who is the Assistant Director of Transportation and Local Government. Hey, Kirby.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, good. Why are you in Pike County today?
Flooding. We're checking out the water situations, seeing how some of these levees and communities are holding up.
And how are they holding up today?
Well, there's a lot of work being done around here. A lot of sandbagging going on. The folks I've talked to so far are in hard-working spirits.
So what about roadway? We know that some of the roads, lots of the roads actually have been closed on and off with the flooding situation. Can you get a handle on that in that part of the state?
Yeah, there are a lot of roads closed, as you mentioned. In fact, most of the roads headed into Calhoun County are actually closed. A lot of bridges are being closed around here. Just outside the Florence Bridge is going to be closed today, from what I'm told. So there is a lot of road closings. The river is cresting in some areas today. So there's some concerns about transportation around the area.
Still a call, Kirby, for help in sandbagging. I know they were looking for any and all help in Adams County in the Quincy area yesterday.
Yeah, and still down here in pretty much every community is looking for help from what I'm seeing and from what I'm hearing. So the local levee districts are sandbagging. Their offices are the place to contact, or the local county farm bureaus are pretty good at getting in contact with those for those who are needing and willing to help.
Sounds good. I know that we wanted to talk about a couple of other things today. In fact, today through later this week, the 4th through the 6th, Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance has designated this time as a road check process. Tell us about that.
Every year, there is a designated couple of days for road checks. It's just simply a road inspection, and several sites out there across the U.S. and Canada where they're just checking over trucks and really pushing safety, just promoting safety. It's an educational experience as well, and that's what this couple of days are all about.
Mm-hmm. And in the past, has that been successful?
Yeah, there is several tickets written, so I don't know how many drivers find it successful. But the education aspect of that, every year they highlight a certain portion of a system that they're going to really push things on. And the officers and those inspectors out there do a pretty good job of explaining, hey, you're getting pretty close here. This is what we're looking for. We just want this to be in good working order.
How do farmers, are they exempt from some of this, or is everybody up for inspection?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is no exemption from the roadside inspection for anyone. So anybody can get pulled over on the side of the road, get the truck inspected. That is a safety feature that's been around for a number of years. So just need to be on the heads up. It's good to give your truck a look around once a day, even just to make sure that everything's in good working order. So there is no exemption on that front.
Now, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but when we talk about an inspection, what does a typical inspection include?
Well, there's three levels, main levels of inspection. There is one of the inspections where the main one that occurs is when an officer comes up, just does a general look over the vehicle, checks the paperwork, and calls it good. There's another little more detailed inspection where they're going to do a walk around, not get under the truck, but they're going to kind of do a walk around, make sure that all the hoses are in good working order. The tires look good. And then there's another inspection where they'll actually get under the truck. They'll inspect slack adjusters. They'll inspect all the big parts, make sure that every portion of that truck system is in working order.
So like you mentioned, and that might not be successful to some people, or they might not look at that as the success definition, but if it saves a life or an accident, it's worth it.
Exactly, and that whole mission is safety. So that's what this week's all about. It's not enforcement. Their goal is not enforcement. They do have to enforce the laws. They do want to make sure the public's safe, but the real goal is to explain what they're looking for, and the officers and the inspectors give a good explanation on how close things are to being adjusted, and can really just remind drivers, hey, this needs to be looked at.
Well, Kirby, we appreciate it. Just a few seconds remain, but we remind folks that you're in Pike County. You're actually with Pike-Scott County Farm Bureau Manager Blake Roderick, who is always in the center of help and really the flood situation in that area. So good luck today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Blake and I will be checking things out and hopefully able to help some people out.
Can we look for some pictures maybe? Are you guys flashing a lot of pictures and putting them up on social media?
Yeah, I will be putting some pictures there up on Twitter. You can find me, I believe my handle is @KirbyJWagner. So I'll be posting some photos up on Twitter of the flooding update and hopefully get some information out there.
Oh, thanks. Well, back to work you go, and we appreciate your time today. Kirby Wagner, Assistant Director of Transportation and Local Government for the Illinois Farm Bureau. Well, coming up next, we're going to head over to Purdue and our monthly visit with the folks over there as they look at the Ag Barometer. And probably no surprise that we've come down a few points in attitude by farmers, and these 400 farmers and ag professionals that are surveyed once a month in the CME Purdue University Ag Barometer survey. So we'll be on with Jim. Actually, today we're not going to talk to Jim. We're actually going to talk to his partner, who is Michael Langemeyer, and he'll be along with the numbers. We'll also check in with Dan Hicks at Freeze Notice Weather later on in the program. Unfortunately, no long-term dry spells, but we'll get a total update from Dan in the next 6 to 10 days, what it holds for Illinois. This is RFD Today.
When it comes to social media, Sabrina Berkowitz connects rural routes for you. Sabrina covers a broad range of ag topics, so Farm Bureau members are the first to know about key issues. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up with a grain and livestock farm in my extended family, and today I really enjoy helping people learn how to use social media to advocate for agriculture.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Attention, Illinois farmers. You won't want to miss this field day at SIU Carbondale University Farms. It's your chance to hear from industry experts about ongoing research and how it will benefit your farm. Join us on June 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. with free lunch included. This is a joint effort of the SIU College of Agricultural Sciences, Illinois Nutrient Research and Education Council, and Illinois Farm Bureau. You must pre-register at IllinoisNREC.org and click on upcoming events.
Time to check your numbers. This hour, we remain lower in the wheat market this morning and trading higher in the corn and soybean futures. Nearby corn, July up 5 1/4, 429 1/2. September up 5 1/4. December corn up 5 3/4, 447 1/2. And March up a nickel at 455 3/4. July soybeans in the nearby up 9, we're at 888. August up 9 1/2, 895 1/4. September up 9 1/4. November soybeans up 9 1/4, 915 1/2. July wheat Chicago down 7 1/2 at 512 1/4. September down 7, and December wheat down 7 at 531 3/4. Bean meal for July up 450 at 325. Those are your numbers on the RFD Radio Network. We're back here on RFD today, and we're talking with the folks at Purdue University, the CME Group Ag Barometer. The numbers released today, June 4th, and no surprise, the sentiment of the ag community has come down since May. We're going to talk about the details with Michael Langemeyer. Hey, Michael.
Good morning.
So the Ag Barometer information coming out for the past month, these 400 U.S. ag producers that you survey each and every month, they're not really liking what's going on out in the country.
Yes, the index it stands at 101, which is the lowest it's been since October
2016, and so it's been a long time since we've reached the level that we're currently at, and there's several things contributing to that. We surveyed people in mid-May, and of course it's been very wet spring planting season, so I think that's weighing on their minds. But obviously, the big elephant in the room is the trade dispute and what's going to happen to soybean exports.
When was the survey actually taken, Michael?
In mid-May.
Mid-May, okay.
And it was right before the USDA's announcement of the second round of trade dispute payments, and so that's very important to keep in mind. I would think when we survey people in mid-June, those payments are going to help settlement a little bit. But having said that, 2019 looks like a really tough year, even with those payments.
What other numbers, reports stand out to you this month?
Well, one of the things I like to look at really carefully is not only the short-term prospects. The short-term prospects are quite pessimistic. Folks are quite pessimistic regarding 2019. We also like to look at the longer-term prospects or longer-term sentiment. And I want to talk about a couple things related to that. First of all, we asked people whether this is a good time to be buying machinery and buildings. We call this our Large Farm Investment Index. That index stands at 36, which is the lowest it's been in the life of the survey. The survey started in the late 2015, and so obviously with profit prospects being rather grim in 2019, people are not expecting to buy very much machinery and buildings. The other index I'd like to take a close look at is land values. And when you look at land value expectations for the next year, 12 months out, there's a large percentage of the people think that they're going to see some softness in land values. And again, that's consistent with the profit expectations, the profit sentiment that we're seeing. But another thing we'd like to look at is farm price expectations 5 years from now. And typically, when we ask people regarding farmland prices expectations that far out, they're usually rather optimistic. And in recent months, we've seen as high as 50% of the people think that farmland prices are going to increase 5 years from now. That number dropped to 39% in May. And so that's a very important point, because it's not only the 2019 sentiment that's rather low, it's also the future expectations sentiment is rather low currently.
Now, do you see reflection in cash rent values or prices when you get into these farmland price expectations? Is there any reflection?
We haven't asked the cash rent question in a few months. When we asked that late last fall, back when we had relatively good yields, and 2018 turned out to be better than a lot of people thought it was going to be, at least in the Corn Belt for crop producers. And so the inkling at that time is that cash rents are going to be relatively stable. I think if 2019 remains rather tough looking like it currently is, we're going to see some softness in cash rents. We will ask another question related to cash rents probably as we get closer to the fall.
I think about this, when interviewing farmers, it gets tougher during these types of times with this crazy planting season, with prices, with the trade disputes, et cetera. How do your interviewers find it with these 400 producers? Is it pretty tough?
Very tough, and that's reflected in questions related to profitability. When we ask people whether this year is going to be higher or lower profitability compared to last year, overwhelmingly people are thinking that profitability is going to be lower in the next 12 months compared to what it has been last year, and so that really weighs on cash rents, as we move into the fall, and so that sentiment continues. If we don't see a little bit more hope here, that's going to create some softness in cash rent.
Yeah.
Another thing I think that really weighs on people's minds is we've seen this in falls when the yields are really quite good, sentiment tends to improve. Well, vice versa, when you see these very wet conditions, I think that adds to the negative sentiment, because if you can't get a crop in the ground, or you're getting the crop in the ground quite a bit later, that's not going to waver. That's not going to seem very positive for your prospects for profitability late in 2019.
Michael, did we miss anything, or maybe a couple of other takeaways for us in this month's numbers?
I think I hit most of the things. I mean, one of the things that's consistent with the profitability is we ask a question quarterly. Do you think farmers' equity position or wealth will improve, diminish, or stay about the same over the next 12 months? And over 50% of the people surveyed indicated that they thought equity was going to be lower. And I think that's a combination of lack of profitability, you're looking at 2019 prospects, but also perhaps some weakness in land values.
The other thing, you talked about the trade dispute, and I was just kind of thumbing through your results here about China, if they think that the China dispute will ultimately be resolved and in a way that will benefit U.S. agriculture. How interesting.
Yeah, so we've asked this in March, April, and May, and so at mid-month, it's always mid-month, so mid-March, mid-April, and mid-May. And again, this is before the announcement of the MFP payments, but the wording of the question, do you think the trade dispute with China will ultimately be resolved in a way that benefits U.S. agriculture? 77% answered yes in March 2019. It was 71% in April. That dropped to 65% in May. And so that's a pretty big drop in a couple months there in terms of the people that think this trade dispute is going to be resolved in a way that benefits the U.S. agriculture. And I think that's creating some of the downward movement in our index.
Just real quick here at the end, where can folks see the complete report?
The complete report can be seen on the website for CME Group, Purdue Ag Economy Barometer, or on the website. You can get to it on the website for the Center for Commercial Agriculture.
Michael, thank you so much for your information. We'll talk to you right here next month. Michael Langemeyer, again with Purdue University, talking about that CME Group Ag Barometer. Always interesting. As we segue into our final segment of today, we'll be talking to Dan Hicks at Freeze Notice Weather with an updated forecast as we really digest the crop report that came out from USDA yesterday. Now, here in Illinois, we're all wondering just how much of the last 72 hours were in the 45% number that came out from USDA. So they're telling us that Illinois has 45% of the corn in the ground as of Sunday, but that does not count, as we said, these latest 36 hours of just pure speed out in the fields and getting that corn in the ground. We'll ask Dan Hicks what the forecast holds when we come back. This is RFD Today. Here's your livestock summary on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Rita Frazier. Mexico is weighing its options to respond to the threat of U.S. tariffs on all of its exports, including possible retaliation, but would rather convince the Trump administration that a negotiated solution is in the best interest of both countries. A high-level Mexican delegation is in Washington this week for meetings with U.S. officials discussing ways of reaching an agreement after President Trump threatened a 5% tariff on all Mexican imports starting June 10th unless Mexico does more to stem the flow of Central American migrants crossing its territory to reach the U.S. The tariff would rise each month to reach 25% by October. Illinois cash hogs yesterday. Illinois direct 48 to a cash top of $55. How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org. We're back on RFD today. Segment 5 today is weather. Dan Hicks at Freeze Notice joins us on a Tuesday. And Dan, I know as we were just talking about that planting progress, we did have a window. It was small, but I think Illinois farmers made every minute count the last few days.
Well, I'm sure they did. And today we've got kind of spotty showers across the state. The greatest coverage of rain overnight was generally in the northern half of the state, and we do have fairly spotty rain across the state today, so certainly where fields are dry enough, I'm sure they're going out there again today. The planting progress increased a little bit in most of the Midwest, but it's hard to find too many places where the corn and bean progress went up more than 10 or 12% during the past week. So even though we had opportunities, things continue to be quite slow, and especially some of the states along and east of the Mississippi. That planting progress is still way behind normal. Here in Illinois, we're typically just about done with corn planting right now, and we're just working toward the halfway point. And soybean planting is typically about 85% done, and we're just working toward the 25% category right now. So still a lot of work to be done across the Midwest regarding especially soybean planting and even some corn planting.
How about the next, 48 hours?
I think that once again today, at least into the early to mid-afternoon, there's going to be quite a few areas of Illinois that don't have rain. So, where they can plant today, a lot of places will be able to go into the afternoon. It looks like we're going to see an increase in coverage of showers and thunderstorms over the state late this afternoon through tomorrow. So I think that's going to slow things down again. This initial rain chance, probably some 1/4 to 1 inch amounts through about midday on Wednesday. Beyond that point, later in the week, it looks like the northern part of Illinois and northward could see some dry time returning. The greatest rain chances move more into the southern half of the Midwest. So I think that being able to get back in the field may favor the northern part of the state later this week, whereas farther south, this system stalls and produces some additional rain. And there may be some fairly heavy rain amounts by the time the week ends, especially in southwest, southern Illinois, Missouri. Some areas could pick up easily some 1 to 2 inch rains, locally heavier by the end of the week.
Very important for Illinois farmers with the local forecast for the state. But as we talked earlier, from Pike County, Adams County, and the flooded areas, those counties that are touched by the swollen rivers out there. What about the whole Midwestern picture for the next 6 to 10 days?
Well, I think that what we described here just a minute ago kind of applies to the entire Midwest, that if you would use perhaps Interstate 80 as a boundary, along and north of that I think is where the lightest rainfall amounts are going to fall on into the weekend. So the northern river valleys may not see enough rain to really aggravate flooding, but as you move farther south, I think the central and the southern Midwest, this potential for heavier rainfall continues on into the weekend. So some of those rivers, the flooding rivers, especially in the central and southern Midwest, that could aggravate that situation somewhat. And again, as we move during that time period, I think that the northern and the far western parts of the Midwest probably have the best opportunity for the lightest precipitation right through the 6 to 10 day time frame. That area from Missouri through the Ohio Valley, that's the area that looks wettest over the next, say, week or 10 days, with heavier rains, more persistent rains, and that would be the area where fieldwork progress would be the slowest, and I think that would be the area where enough rain will fall to perhaps even worsen some of these flooding conditions.
Longer term, you see any changes?
Well, not really. I mean, we've been looking for the first sign of a long dry window, and going back all the way into April, we're just not seeing that. And again, with any limited confidence out that far, it still does not look like we're going to see any long windows of dry weather opening up here in the near future. By that I'm thinking maybe a week or 10 days of dry weather just doesn't seem to be in the cards right now. So I just have to think that June rainfall is going to be tend to be normal to at least a little bit above normal across the Midwest. So these problems with wet fields, with high and flooding river levels, may be kind of a long-lasting thing on further into the month of June. It's unlikely we'll see the record rainfall that we saw during May, but given the situation with the wet fields and the flooding right now, even normal rainfall is enough to keep these problems going for at least a few more weeks farther into June.
Do you dare talk about, how long our summer might be? So even when we get these crops in, how do we look in August and September?
Well, I think that, we still have weak El Nino in the tropical Pacific, and typically when you have that, you don't see extremes as far as a turnaround to heat and dryness in the Midwest. I suspect that as we get into July and August, we may see a turnaround to rainfall, maybe running a little bit below normal. So it's something to kind of watch out for during the mid to late summer. But there's no clear indication right now that things are going to completely turn around the opposite direction for mid to late summer. So I think that the crops that can get planted and can at this late date still get a decent start. There's nothing to indicate really adverse weather mid to late this summer, but again, it's always difficult to forecast that far out in the future, especially during the summertime months.
It's tough here in the last few seconds, though. Would you rather have a year as a meteorologist like this one? At least it's exciting, right?
Well, it is exciting, and I come from a farm background, and my family still has a farm, and I understand the frustration with farmers across the Midwest this year, where we started out with such wet soils, and it's been so wet to prevent the planting. So to a meteorologist, rain and thunderstorms are exciting, but you have to take into account how it affects other people in the Midwest. So you don't want people to suffer from the weather,
right?
No matter whether they're farmers or otherwise.
For sure. Dan Hicks at Freeze Notice. More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.